Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the Record Celtic podcast. My name's Ryan McDonald and I'm delighted to be joined by a special guest today, Record Sports' very own Tam McManus. Tam, how's it going, mate?
Very well. Quiet time of the season, obviously, but looking forward to the domestic stuff starting after watching Scotland in the World Cup.
Aye, it was a sore one to take that, wasn't
it? Hopefully, I'm not a fan of international football anyway, obviously being a Scotland supporter, but that was crap to watch.
Yeah, you're looking pretty bronze, pal. Have you been away on holiday?
I've been away. I was away for a week, and I've been playing a lot of golf, obviously with a quiet time of the season, so whenever the sun's out, the clubs come out. That's my motto.
I bet you don't miss the pre-seasons.
No, I'm seeing some of the pictures for some of the social media sites for the teams, and they're all lying in the ground knackered. And that was the worst part of being a football player was the pre-season. Plus, they all keep themselves in decent shape. I mean, I used to get away for 2 or 3 weeks on holiday, and then come back and then lose weight to get to the start of the season. But they don't do that anymore, thankfully.
Running up hills.
Aye, running up Arthur's Seat with Jim Duffy and then Big Egg. Murder.
Oh God, I can hardly run 5 kilometres and I run that hill. But aye, thanks for joining us today, Tam. Obviously, Mick and Dan are on their holiday bags at the minute, so we're left running the ship. But there's plenty to get stuck into as well in the Celtic front. Well, obviously I say that, but there's almost nothing to report in terms of transfers. Obviously, Rangers and Hearts are signing players for fun at the minute. It seems like Celtic are standing still and dragging their heels. Maybe something that we've all seen before. I know personally I felt like Grim Reaper at times because every time there's been a transfer link, I check it out and apparently there's nothing in it. Noble Mendy was the latest name linked yesterday, Tam, and he's a central defender, plays for Rayo Vallecano. And after speaking to sources close to the player, they made it clear that there was absolutely no contact with Celtic, and he said that they had better options in the Premier League. So I think pretty much you can strike that name off the list. I think the last Palmas keeper, Dinko Horkas, he was another name that was linked yesterday, but again, not in Celtic's radar. So, I suppose that poses the question, Tam, what is actually going on at Celtic Park at the minute? There's just so much work to be done in the squad, and I just find it incredible that there's been no incomings at all. I think we've all seen this movie before, but are you really that surprised?
No, I don't think anything surprises me about Celtic now. I think you've seen it over the last few seasons. The rush in the last week of the window, whether that's the summer window or the winter window, there seems to be an apathy in terms of getting players in early. And any manager, any player will tell you need to get players in early doors. When you look at, as you said, you look at Rangers, you look at Hearts, they're signing players. And this is a really important time, I think, for football clubs as pre-season. No players want to go into pre-season not having a pre-season, and certainly not having a pre-season with the team you're at. So it's important to build team bonding. It's important to build fitness, but it's also important to build a certain shape and to get into the way the manager wants you to play. And there's a lot. Obviously, the games are just about starting just now. And I know Hibs had one the other night, but Celtic and Rangers will obviously have qualifiers coming up as well, where they've got to get players in and get into shape quickly. So nothing surprises me really about Celtic at the minute. It seems to have been the case over the last few seasons. And obviously Martin's the manager. They've got the coaches in that they wanted, but again they've dragged their heels on that as well. So in terms of recruitment, I don't think a lot of the Celtic supporters know who's actually out there looking at players at the minute. Is it Martin? Is it Sean Maloney? Is it Mark Fotheringham? Is it somebody else? So again, it's just a bit of a mess at Celtic at the minute. And if you're the other side of the city, a Rangers fan at the minute, you're looking at Derek McInnes, you're looking at 4 or 5 players coming in, spending money, and getting players in for pre-season, and you're thinking we're kind of lagging behind them again in pre-season.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing, Tam. You correctly point that out. Who's actually looking at the players? Because at the minute there's no head of recruitment that's been appointed. Paul Tisdale left in January, and you think once the season's finished, the club will get their house in order. They'll make these appointments. You still get an interim chairman and Brian Wilson. There's no news on whether he's going to become permanent or not. Like you say, no head of recruitment. Are they going to replace Gavin Strachan? I know they've obviously brought in a new set piece coach and Ross Grant, but what's happening there? It just seems as if it's just unorganised chaos again.
Yeah, you just hit the nail on the head. It is, and as I said, it's a really important time. I know, listen, the window goes all the way to the end of August, which is fine, but you want to get players in now. Celtic have got some big qualifiers coming up for Champions League, and you want to start the season well as well. So you want players in place. Listen, I get that there's a lot of Celtic players are away at the World Cup at the minute, and they'll obviously come back later than the guys that are in just now. They need a break as well. So, I get all that, but for Celtic, you've got to be identifying areas in your team at the minute where you want to strengthen. And I see the Celtic supporters have seen this movie before. It's nothing new. And it's just, you think you would learn from your mistakes. Listen, they scraped over the line last season, on the last day of the season. They got away with it. I think Martin O'Neill coming back, they got away with it. A disastrous season, and they've managed to get over the line, but you can't do that again. There's only so long that Rangers, I wouldn't say bottle it in the pressure situations, but I think they've got a manager in now who knows Scottish football, who knows how to win, domestically, and almost won the league with Hearts last season. So I think if you're a Celtic supporter, you're worried at the minute. That squad needs strengthened. I think you've seen that last season. You need players in key areas, and no one knows who's going to be bringing them in. As a player's been earmarked to come in. Are they watching players at the minute? There's nothing coming out of Celtic Park. So no, it's not a great situation to be in if you're a Celtic fan at the minute.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the biggest tap in the transfer window has got to be Marcelo Saracchi. I thought perhaps he didn't play as much as he'd liked last season, but he certainly made an impact from the bench, and I think he's more than capable deputy to Kieran Tierney. And I reported last week that Celtic had opened talks with Boca Juniors over a deal for Marcelo Saracchi, and I know for a fact that he wants to come back to Celtic. That is his preferred option, although he does have interest in MLS and Turkey. And Boca, I think Saracchi's out of contract next December, so 18 months. And Boca are kind of wanting to offload him so they can free up a foreign slot in their squad. And they're wanting around £1.5 million for him, which is buttons really for Celtic. With £60 million in the bank, should be an absolute no-brainer. To put it in perspective, they spent roughly the same in a player called Shin Yamada last summer. Remember him? He's still at the club, by the way, and he was a player that Brendan Rodgers didn't even want. But instead of ticking off the left back issue off the list, it's my understanding that Celtic proposed yet another loan deal, which was instantly rejected by Boca, because obviously they would rather sell him for some money this summer rather than risk losing him for nothing. So it really should be the most straightforward deal in the window. Yet 2 weeks on, we're no further forward. It just kind of bears relief, doesn't it? It just kind of sums up kind of how slow Celtic are in terms of getting deals over the line.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think it is a no-brainer. I thought he was excellent last season at times when he came into the team at Celtic. Obviously, Kieran Tierney was your starting left back, but whenever Saracchi came in, he was fit, he was ready to go. I thought he contributed greatly to Celtic winning the league that last game of the season. I thought he came on and was excellent. So £1.5 million, it's not a lot of money for Celtic. You know what you're getting. It's not as if you're bringing somebody in who's not played in the league before. You know what kind of character you're getting. I think Martin O'Neill liked him as well as a character. He didn't complain when he was out the team. He was a good squad player. So yeah, it's Celtic wanting another loan deal again doesn't surprise me. It's like they try and do everything on the cheap. They're trying to save pennies everywhere they can, whereas the other side of the city, Rangers are just going and buying players and spending money. So yeah, I'm really surprised that that's not been done. If the players, as you say, is desperate to come back to Glasgow and Boca are wanting to sell them, I'm surprised that the deal's not been done already.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, one look at social media, Tam. You're in X, and you'll be reading it all as well. But it just kind of tells you everything you really need to know. Fans are restless, and that's probably putting it lightly. And the board promised that they'd learned from mistakes of last season. And Celtic are now a week back at Lennoxtown, and the only new face is Ross Grant, as I said, is a set piece coach from Hearts, which, by the way, I think it's a forward-thinking appointment. And Hearts were the joint top scorers in the Premiership along with Rangers with 23 goals. from set pieces last season. I think that was probably an area where Celtic definitely had to improve, both defensively and offensively. So I do think that is a really wise appointment, and it could be a massive coup.
Right. I'm surprised that Celtic never got out with a scarf and all that as a new signing. But that's social media.
Parading him as a new signing. But the thing is, they never came out with a scarf, Tam, right? But I'm pretty sure the Celtic social media team, I think they were rage baiting the other day because they did post a happy birthday message to him in the app, which you can imagine how that went down. It's in the door 10 minutes, he's getting a happy birthday message.
No, but I do agree with you. I think that is the modern game now. There's set piece coaches, there's throw-in coaches, I think they're going. I wouldn't say Americanized, but you look at American sports and they've got specialist coaches in for every area, whether that be defensively, offensively, whatever it is. So, yeah, I do agree with you. I think Rangers and Hearts were excellent at set pieces, and it's not by accident. It's by getting someone in, identifying strengths in your team, weaknesses in our team. So a lot of Celtic fans would probably laugh at it and go, "It's only a set piece coach." It could get you a few extra goals and points next year.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like if he can prevent 3 or 4 goals going in and adds, the other way as well, then he's definitely his wages have been paid. He's earned his wages. And I think defensively, especially Celtic were so vulnerable at set pieces last season. Anytime there was a long ball or a corner went floated in that box, it just sensed a bit of mayhem. And they were I think they've been vulnerable for a couple of years, to be honest. They don't have the tallest of defenders, and perhaps that's something, or the tallest of teams in general. Perhaps that's something that Martin Neil will want to address this coming summer, because you look at Martin Neil's team in his first spell in the 2000s. He had absolute bulldozers in there like Bobo Balde.
I remember all them, right? I'm still having nightmares about big Bobo Balde. You're right. Celtic were the biggest team that I ever played against. I played football for like 17 years, and they were the biggest team that I'd ever seen. I remember walking into the tunnel one of my first games against Celtic, and it was ridiculous. Stan Varga, Mialbe. It was a team of giants. Bobo Balde, Sutton, even Alan Thompson was 6 foot plus. God. So I think you're spot on. I think that Martin Neil's now obviously he's in the job. He's going to be identifying, getting some height into that team, because that is the one thing about Martin Neil's teams, whether it was at Celtic or Leicester or anywhere else, Aston Villa, even at international level, all his teams were giants. So I think that would have been something that over the summer he's thinking that we need to add a bit more physical presence, height to our team.
Yeah. I mean, Bobo Balde, what a player he was. No wonder you're still getting nightmares for him. I remember I think it was a friendly game at Celtic Park. It was a Legends game, but maybe 10 years ago or something like that. He went flying into a tackle, might have been in Berbatov, and it was as if it was like the UEFA Cup final. He just doesn't change.
Character.
I wouldn't like to come up against him. But I mean, there's a league table doing the rounds at the minute, and it shows how many signings that each club has made, and Celtic are bottom of it with 0. They're the only club in the Premiership that haven't signed a single player this summer, and it just makes me wonder, Martin Neil, surely can't be happy with this. This isn't what he signed up for. He's 74-year-old, he won a double last season. Surely he sought kind of assurances from the board that, what happened last season wouldn't happen again. I spoke to Paul Lambert the other day, and I might as well plug this. You can read that exclusive interview in today's paper or online. And few people know Martin better than Paul, because obviously he was a captain in the Seville era and he won so many trophies at Celtic. But he said that there's no way Martin will sit back without speaking up, and he used the term that he doesn't think that he'll accept that last season syndrome. Now, I know it's still early days. And listen, this window's obviously been billed as a summer transition with Celtic, but there is still what best part of 2 months still to go. So I don't think it's quite panic stations yet. But it's 12 players have left the building here and 0 have come in. And as I say, they're back for pre-season. They've got the first friendly on Tuesday. Martin Neil said he's going to change the way that Celtic are going to play. Obviously, I don't think they were pretty in the eye last season, but Martin Neil effectively did what he had to do, which was get Celtic over the line and somehow resuscitate the season and win that double. But with so many players coming in and out, like you say, a big turnover of players, surely it's more important than ever to get new signings in the door for pre-season to adapt and get to know their teammates. I mean, you must know what that's like.
Yeah, definitely. I said at the start, it's a crucial time for any team. As a manager, you want to get your new signings in as quickly as possible. You want to bed them into the football club. Celtic are a massive club, and one of the biggest in Europe. So if you're coming to Celtic, you've got to know the expectations straight away. And Celtic will go to friendly games and there'll be 2, 3, 4,000 at the game. And I know it's only a friendly game, but you'll get a feel of the club. Right, this is a big club, and and that's what you've got to do. You've got to bed them into the way you want to play. Martin O'Neill, obviously, last season, you're right, he just got them over the line. They weren't great to watch, but they weren't any of his signings, really. Well, they did sign a few in January, which I don't think he was happy because he didn't play many of them. But yeah, he wants to get players in who he's brought in and he wants to get them into a certain style of play. So yeah, the game's coming thick and fast. They've got qualifier coming up as well. So I don't think Martin's going to be happy. I think he would have wanted, like any manager, to get players in now, to get players into the building now, get them in for pre-season, have a look at them, get to know them as a character, and kind of bed them into Celtic Football Club. And they've not done that. And that league table, bottom of the league table, no signed a player's astonishing, really, for a club of Celtic size.
Yeah, and the money they've got as well.
Yeah.
What positions do you think Celtic need to strengthen, Tam? I mean, I'll start off. For me, it's easy. I think they basically need to bolster every single department while continuing to shift, Deadwood out the door as well. Like I've touched upon Shin Yamada, who clearly doesn't have a future at the club. Michelle Ange Balakwisha, they did spend money on him last season, but perhaps it was unwise. It was £5 million and he only played a handful of games and he clearly wasn't up to it. But for me, in goals, you've got Sinisalo, obviously Kasper Schmeichel's retired. I thought Sinisalo did well when he came in. I thought he was a safe pair of hands. He was pretty reliable between the sticks. Can't recall any real howlers. I think there was a couple of shaky moments when he was with his distribution, but overall I thought he was pretty decent. I know the long-term plan for Sinisalo when he first came in 2 years ago was for him to eventually succeed Kasper Schmeichel and become number one. But that was probably under Brendan Rodgers, and this is a new manager, Martin O'Neill. And I just think that for Celtic to progress, they do still need to bring in a quality keeper that's capable of at least challenging Sinisalo for that number one jersey, or even replacing him as number one. I don't think they can bring in another guy like Ross Doohan who's just happy to be back up. They really need somebody to be pushing them. So for me, I think a goalkeeper's a must. Left back, I think, as I said, Marcelo Saracchi is the easiest. It's just an open goal for Celtic to get that done. He's a fan's favourite. He's proven that he's a more than capable deputy for Kieran Tierney. He's more than capable. I mean, he's an ex-Leipzig player as well. He's got Champions League experience. He's a Uruguay international. He just ticks every box. I think it's a no-brainer for Celtic to get that done. That would solve the left-back issue. Central defence, I think Mike Naroki's come back. He's a bit of a forgotten man. He was on loan at Hanover last season in Bundesliga 2. He did okay, I think. And you wonder if he's maybe got a future at Celtic. But I do think, like I touched upon there, Tam, I think Celtic need a bit more height and presence in the centre.
Dominant centre.
Yeah, and I know obviously Cameron Carter-Vickers is coming back, and he's been a man mountain for Celtic. He's been colossal. But you wonder with that, and it's like Achilles injury, you just wonder if he's still going to be the same player. And he has picked up a lot of niggles in recent years, so I do have concerns over him. But I do think, regardless, a new centre-back, a first-choice centre-back coming in the building is a must. You look at right-back, that's probably the area where they've got most cover. Alistair Johnson, he's at the World Cup just now.
He's been linked to a few clubs. He's done well for Canada. They might struggle to hang on to him, right?
Yeah, he's earning rave reviews for Canada at the minute. He's doing extremely well. Obviously, I think Canada reached the knockouts for the first time in their history, and now obviously Alistair played a big part in that. But he's just a top draw right back, and then you've got cover there with Anthony Ralston and Kobe Donovan who made his breakthrough last season as well. So I think you're okay there. But midfield, that's got to be a major concern for Celtic, because really I'm looking at it just now, and I think you've only really got Callum McGregor in there that you can absolutely, well, can he guarantee he'll be there? Because he said that if Celtic don't show ambition, then there's no guarantees that he'll be willing to stick around. But I think as captain of the club, he's expect the leader to be there. But you look at who could partner him. Rio Hatate's, I think he's done. I think Martin O'Neill wasn't impressed by his attitude at times last season. He's been at Celtic for 4.5 years. He's done everything. He's achieved everything he can. You can't blame him for wanting to move on to to get a new challenge. I think a partner ways is probably suit both parties. So I think Rio Hatate will be gone. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, he's out of contract at the minute. He's not been offered a new deal, and it's unlikely you're probably going to see him back at the club. There's interest in Benjamin Nygren, Arnie Engels. There's talk that he could go for £25 million upwards. Nottingham Forest are supposedly going to reignite their interest in him this summer. And then obviously Paulo Bernardo, who was a bit of the missing man last season, wasn't he? He just completely fell out of the picture. And I think for the sake of his own career, he'll want to move on as well and play regular first team football. So you're possibly looking at about 4 or 5 midfielders going out the door, and really only Callum McGregor there. So as I touched upon Benjamin Nygren as well, and he's been he obviously played for Sweden at the World Cup and scored 21 goals last season, but he's been linked with a big money move as well, and I think a £15-20 million table, I think Celtic will take that. So the midfield is, you can see a completely different. I can see Celtic having a completely different midfield from next season onwards. So I think that's got to be a priority area. And then you've got the wingers. For me, James Forrest is probably still the best player at the club. He's the best winger at the club. He's 34, 35. You really need. I think Celtic really need to strengthen there. Seb Teneke, I think he flatters to deceive. He was much better as an impact player than he was starting. I've never really been convinced by him when he started from the first whistle. He's always made an impact coming off the bench, but you really need a guy that you can hang your hat on for 90 minutes. I don't think he's that. As I said, Ange Balaquisha, I think the writing's on the wall for him. You've got Yang, who's come on leaps and bounds. I think Martin O'Neill really rates him, but again, can you rely upon him to keep improving next season and be your first choice winger? I'm not so sure. And then up front, Tam, as well, we've got Daizen Maeda, who's, I think he's made it clear he wants to move on and move to a bigger league, and you can't begrudge him with that either. He was absolutely sensational. I think he probably single-handedly won Celtic the league last season with that explosive run of form. I think it was 9 goals in 7. He was absolutely outstanding. I think he'll go with Celtic's best wishes. And then we all know Kelechi Iheanacho. He's out of contract as well. He's a free agent. There's no movement in that. I think there's interest in Turkey, so he could well end up going there. So for me, there's just got to be, like you touched upon, Celtic won't get away with a squad again to win the league this season. There needs to be vast improvements all over the park, and this is why I think it should be a major summer overhaul, a proper summer transition. I mean, I build it like a generational transfer rebuild for Celtic, and I really believe that. I think it could even eclipse the work that Ange Postecoglou did when he first came in, and he had a lot of work to do. So I know I've thrown a lot of positions at you there, Tam, but what's your feelings on it?
I think you're better saying who do you think is going to be there rather than who's not going to be there. It's one of the ones there's maybe 5 or 6 you could say, right, they're definitely going to be there. I think the goalkeeper, Callum McGregor, Forrest, Tierney, they're guys that you think Ralston will definitely be there. But other than that, you're right, it's going to be, I think, maybe 10, 12 players in. Maybe even more than that. You're right, it's a huge overhaul of the squad. Celtic will not get away with that again next season. They won't. I think Rangers will be stronger next season. They will be stronger. They're spending money already. I think they've got a manager in there who almost won the league, with a smaller club last year. So Celtic need to strengthen big time. It's European football as well. The Celtic have been poor in that area in the last couple of seasons as well. They've got to be better than that in European football. So yeah, there's going to be a huge turnover of players, and Daizen Maeda's at the World Cup. I agree with you. I think the time's right for him. I think that Martin went in and put his arm around him towards the end of last season and says, listen, just do the business for us and you'll get your move in the summer. I think that he'll be gone. Hatate will be gone. Nygren, it's amazing. He still splits Celtic supporters. There's Celtic supporters who ask me to think he's crap, think he's rotten. And but then there's other ones who go, he scored 21 goals. You're going to be taking 20 plus goals with your team, but I'd be somewhere in the middle with him. I think if you signed him for 1.5, you're getting upwards of 10 million for him. I'd sell him. I think you can get an attacking midfielder somewhere in Europe that will get similar numbers to him. So yeah, there is going to be a huge turnover. But one thing I can guarantee is that Celtic will be more physical. They'll be a bigger side next year. I think that under Martin, Sean Maloney was part of Martin's team as well. And Sean Maloney's not a big player by any means, but I think that they will go down the road of signing more physically imposing players and being more dangerous. I think it's maybe a sign bringing a set piece coach in, because I think that's maybe a wee indication that Celtic will be a bigger threat at set pieces at both ends next season with the height they're going to bring in and the physical power that they're going to bring in. So yeah, listen, there's a long way to go in the transfer window. There's time to go to bring players in, but Celtic need to get their skates on to try and bring players in now, because they'll be looking at the same players that other clubs are looking at, and if other clubs going to steal a match on them, they might lose out on them. But yeah, there's going to be a massive turnover of players at Celtic. There's maybe only 5 or 6, me and the outside looking in, who you could definitely say we're actually going to still be there.
Yeah.
Out of what, a 24 man squad. So there's going to be a lot of ins.
Yeah. Are you surprised that Iheanacho and Oxlade-Chamberlain are free agents? Because it appears that Celtic haven't offered them new deals. Do you think they should have still been offered new deals?
Oxlade-Chamberlain, no. I think he came in and made an impact. Obviously, scored some huge goals. I remember the last minute goal against Livingston, and he did contribute. I'm not convinced about him legs wise at his age in that midfield area.
Yeah.
Iheanacho for me would be one. I think again, as a no-brainer. I think you bring him in, even he doesn't start every week. You can see his quality. I don't think he was fit last season. I think he didn't do a pre-season last year. He was injured. I think you get him in now. You get him working hard. You get 2 or 3 good weeks pre-season into him. I think you see a better player, a fitter player, because his quality was evident last season at Celtic. Celtic really missed him when he was out of the team. Plus, big game player, big game situations, pressure situations. They don't grow on trees. Scoring the last minute penalty to basically win Celtic a league. Motherwell, last gasp goals in other games, penalty kicks, popping up in finals, semi-finals. I think he's a no-brainer as well. So Oxlade-Chamberlain, no, I'm not surprised in him. Iheanacho, I am surprised, because I think he showed his quality in his bottle last season for Celtic, and I think that's something you need in your team.
Yeah, I agree with Tam. I think, especially with Kelechi and Iheanacho, I think when you've got a proven goal scorer in the building, they cost a lot of money. And I know there's obviously concerns over his fitness, but like you touch upon, he's just ice cool. He's a big moments player. And I think if you can sign him up for another year on a free, again, it just seems to be as if it's a no-brainer. He's proven that he is a man for the big moments. He has scored in powder-keg occasions, and he's made it clear that he wants to stay at Celtic as well. So for me,
we don't know the salary situation, Ryan. Maybe he's felt. Maybe he's felt, listen, I've done the business for you last season. I've contributed massively. I want X amount of money. I want more money. And Celtic maybe balked at that figure. We don't know the ins and outs of that, but certainly if it was within Celtic's wage bracket, you're right. You should be signing him.
Yeah, I think that's a valid point. He definitely wouldn't have been on he would have been on a pretty penny.
I don't think he'd have been on a big money at Celtic coming in. I don't think he would have, but I think he's probably thinking, right, okay, I've done the business. On double my money or treble my money, in Celtic maybe went, well, wait a minute, no, we're not going to pay that. So,
I mean, even if he's not going to be a starter, as he showed case last season on several occasions, you've got him on the bench to come on and potentially win you the game. So, I mean, for me, it just seems as if it's just another no-brainer for Celtic to do, especially on a free transfer. And as I say, when you've got a proven goal scorer in the building, they cost a lot of money. If you can get this guy tied up in another year, then I think they should be doing it. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, people forget if Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain didn't actually join Celtic, they wouldn't have won the league, because he scored 2 winners. He scored in his debut against Livingston in the last minute, and then he scored the only goal of the game against St Mirren, I think it was, as well. And that contributed 6 points for Celtic, which in the end was absolutely vital. So I think he more than played his part, but perhaps Celtic might move on and have other players in mind. As a Hibs man, Tam, I suppose you won't like me asking this, but what do you think about Miguel Chaiwa? Do you think he'd be an ideal fit for Celtic? I know he's obviously been heavily linked, and I think the talk is that Hibs would be looking for around £5 million for him.
Yeah, I've really impressed him. I thought it was a great signing. Champions League experience for young boys. Malky Mackay and the recruitment team have identified him, brought him in. I think they paid 400 grand from 500 grand, which is good money for a club the size of Hibs. But I think he hit the ground running. I watched him against Legia Warsaw in the I think it was a Conference League qualifier at the start of last season, and I thought he looks a right player. He was outstanding that night, and I've kept my eye on him. I think his numbers in terms of winning the ball back, and I think he's a really, really strong player in there. He covers the ground. Listen, as I said, we all know analytics now. So I think, but the key one for me was I watched him against Celtic at Parkhead. I think Hibs won the game. I think Celtic got man sent off, and I think Hibs won. He was outstanding that day. And I think when you see a player at close quarters, i.e. Martin O'Neill, Sean Maloney, Mark Fotheringham, would have watched Chaiwa that day running. He ran the game for Hibs, and they ran the game in the middle of the park. I think after that, you've seen the interest. Celtic starting to be linked with him, because I thought they'd maybe come in after the game and went, he's a player that we should be interested in looking at. £5 million, I think, is a sell for Hibs. I think you sign a guy for 400 or 500 grand, and then a year later you're getting offered 5, you sell him. Would he go into Celtic's team and contribute? Yes, I think he would. He's only 22. I think he's got a lot of potential. Technically a good player as well. So I think that do I see Celtic paying Hibs £5 million for a player? I don't know. My guess would be somebody from England would sign him. But certainly for a Celtic point of view, I think he would begin and strengthen their starting lineup. Yep.
Yeah. Another player that I think is right under Celtic's noses is Elijah Just. I voted him as my Scottish Football Writers Association's Player of the Year last season. I thought he was outstanding. He was easily my favourite player in the Premiership. He's a little magician in the ball. It was obviously his first season at Motherwell. Really lit up Scottish football. And then I was hoping to see him really kind of take it on again at the World Cup, and he properly exploded onto that stage as well. 3 goals in three games, and I think he became the first New Zealander to score a brace in a single World Cup match as well. So I think, again, if Celtic can get that deal over the line, that would be, again, just an absolute no-brainer category. I think perhaps a worry for Celtic would be that they might have missed the boat with his form at the World Cup. You wonder if he's now on the radar of other clubs who might not have been aware of him. But do you think Elijah Just would be a top signing for Celtic?
Oh yes, absolutely. I agree with you. I think he was outstanding last year, and he's went to the World Cup on the biggest stage possible for a small nation, and he scored 3 goals in 3 games, and good goals as well. So you're right. There's no doubt for me that he's on other clubs' radars now. There's been clubs there watching other players and went, he looks handy. Motherwell, I think, would be looking for £4 or £5 million for him. And so, again, are Celtic going to pay that domestically? And they've balked at that sort of price in the past. They should have signed John McGinn a long time ago, and they wouldn't pay the money until it was too late. This could be another case of that. I think when you look at, as soon as the window opened, Celtic should have been right into Motherwell, right? And putting a bid in. They've slept with that one as well. And they might lose out now to an English club, whether that be an English Championship club or an English Premiership club, because he was fantastic for New Zealand. He really was. Not only his goals, but his overall performances. And clubs in Europe, clubs in England would be looking at him and going, £4 or £5 million, not a lot of money for the big clubs in England. And I think Motherwell would be, they will be licking their lips now at the prospect of a bidding war for him.
Yeah. That's a problem with Celtic. That's my biggest issue with Celtic. I feel as if they're reactive rather than proactive. Like you say, I think that deal should have been tied up before he went to the World Cup. The boy's talent is clear as day, and he's like, I'm actually delighted that he performed so well there, because, like you say, his value's only going to go up, and that's great for Scottish football and for Motherwell, because they'll probably end up raking in a record fee for him, which will. I think David Turnbull was the record sum that Motherwell had, around about 3.5 million. So you'd expect him to go for more than that. But sticking with the World Cup theme, Tam, as we kind of draw the podcast to a close, Austin Trusty, his adventure continues after the USA beat Bosnia 2-0 in the early hours of this morning. I take it you didn't set your alarm and watch that, no?
I didn't, but I obviously seen the result this morning. Obviously, having lived and played over in the USA, I've got a lot of friends over there. I want to see them doing well. I want to see all the the home country's doing well, particularly Mexico in the next round. But no, Austin Trusty's a weird one for me as well. I think he's more suited to be under the cosh. I think his best performances in a Celtic jersey have been in away to Atlanta and teams like that, away to Bologna, where Celtic are getting bombarded, they're sitting deep and they're just defending crosses. The USA will probably get that at times in the World Cup as well. So you've seen when he's got time on the ball, I think Derek McInnes kind of left, and Hearts left him on it in the last game of the season, and he had a nightmare. And I think eventually getting taken off. So he's a weird one for me, Trusty. I think he's more suited to a lesser team than Celtic, who have not got all of that possession, who play a high line, and the centre halves have got plenty of the ball. I'm not sure he's a Martin O'Neill centre half either. I don't think he's commanding enough, aggressive enough. So if he's obviously playing for USA and has a good World Cup, somebody else might come in and sign him. I don't think a lot of Celtic supporters would be gutted to see him go. I think he's been a decent signing, but I don't think he's a commanding, aggressive centre half that Celtic need.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think he's a backs to the walls defender, like you say. In Europe, at times he was imperious, and at Atlanta, like you mentioned, in Europa League last season as well, we produced some top draw performances. So I think in Europe, that's where his best performances in a Celtic jersey have come. But domestically, yeah, it's a strange one. I just feel as if when he has got time in the ball, we can be a bit of a liability. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if interest grows in him. He scored his first World Cup goal, I think it was last week, but he didn't come off. He was on the bench last night against Bosnia, and he didn't come off, but he is through to the next round, so I wish him the best of luck. Now, Tam, I noticed that you tweeted about Mexico having a big advantage over England due to the high altitude. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, well, obviously, I signed for Colorado when I was 25. It was midway through the season, so a lot of people are saying, "Oh, maybe you weren't fit enough." But I've actually played half a season for Dunfermline, and the MLS season was a summer season, so they didn't start till March. So I was theoretically fitter than most of the boys, although the American guys are really fit. But so I was fit, and then I got to Denver, and I got off the plane and I could hardly breathe walking from the plane to the terminus, and then I met the players at the training ground. We went for a loosener, and I really, really struggled to breathe. There was no air. The air was very thin, and I ended up spending a couple of days in my bed in a hotel with altitude sickness. And listen, I don't know if not everyone will get that, but I really, really struggled. And when we played teams, and teams came to Colorado, you could see with 20, 30 minutes to go, they were knackered, and we used to win a lot of games late on when teams wilted with the altitude. So the flip side of that, and again, this is probably another advantage for Mexico. Once I'd played in Colorado for 2 or 3 weeks and I'd get accustomed to the altitude, I was flying. I was the fittest I'd ever been. I could run all day. So the Mexicans, again, I think I've got that advantage as well. So, and you could hit shots from anywhere. The air was thin. The ball would fly a mile. Crossfield balls, you would overhit them. It was just a weird setup until you got used to it. So I think England going in there 1 or 2 days before they're due to play Mexico, I don't think that's enough time for them to get acclimatised to the altitude. And I think it's 2,000 feet higher in Mexico than it was in Colorado. So I think they've got a big job on to beat Mexico. I think Mexico are underdogs with the bookies, but I would make them favourites to beat England simply because of the conditions that the Mexicans are used to.
Yeah, and you genuinely struggled to breathe.
I did. It was not just walking about, but once I started jogging and started to get my heart rate up, I felt as if there was no air. It was weird. It was like there was no air, but as I said, once I get used to it, it was fine, and I did get myself fitter. But yeah, certainly I think the England players are going to struggle and at that sort of altitude. You look at a team like Bolivia, who I think their home record is astonishing because they play altitude in a way record they're rotten. It is a big advantage, I think. Another club in their league was Real Salt Lake City, Utah, which was just over the mountains for us, and they had a good home record as well. They were altitude. So it should be a big advantage for the home team, but who knows? England have I've been decent so far, but I'd fancy the Mexicans to take them.
Yeah, you gonna have your sombrero on?
I'm going to have my sombrero on, my Corona, my fajitas out. I'm hoping Mexico do the business, and I think that's going to be key. Is can they stay in the game 60, 70 minutes? I think England will tire towards the end of that game. In fact, I'm sure they will. So I think later in the game is the time where Mexico can maybe win it.
Yeah. Well, we'll be keeping a close eye in the rest of the World Cup, particularly in the Celtic representatives as the tournament progresses into the last 16. I think Alistair Johnson's the only other Celt still involved, with Canada playing Scotland's old foes, Morocco, on Saturday night. But that's enough World Cup chat for there. Well, I think we'll wrap it up there. Tam, thanks very much for joining us today. Did you enjoy it?
Brilliant. Well done. Great to talk to you, Ryan. Great to talk to you, pal.
Yeah, it'd be great to have you on again sometime soon. You'll next hear from me over in Ireland, and then Portugal's Record Sport brings you the best coverage from Celtic's pre-season. The first friendly is with Shelburne on Tuesday at 6 p.m. before Celtic fly out for a week-long training camp in Albufeira, which finishes with a friendly against Sporting Lisbon on Tuesday, July the 14th. So, yeah, we'll be there every step of the way. Make sure you like this video, comment, subscribe, to see all of our best content, and we might even have some transfer news to bring you too. So, Tam, it was a pleasure. Thanks very much for tuning in, and see you next time.
Cheers.